Leo was a little boy who had caught a most frightfully dreadful disease. It wasn't the chickenpox, nor the mumps, not even the dreaded flump-nosed sneeze weasel flu. His illness was called the Great Grey Glooms. Have you ever been bored like that? So utterly, dreadfully bored that you feel all the colors in the world have drained out through a tiny hole in your sock, leaving everything a smear of gray? Leo's room was precisely like that. His toys looked gray, his books looked gray, and even his cat Fuzzkins, who was usually a magnificent marmalade orange, looked like a sad gray lump of dust snoozing in the corner. Leo sighed a gray sigh. It was so heavy and gray that it floated out of his window and hung in the sky like a useless little cloud. And that's when something zipped in through the open window. It wasn't a bug. It wasn't a speck of dust. It was a thought. A tiny, shimmering golden thought that smelled of hot buttered toast and secret giggles. It did a loop-the-loop around the room and landed ever so gently right on the tip of Leo's nose, tickling him. Leo let out a sneeze that sounded like kerthink. The golden thought bobbed up and hovered in front of his eyes. Written upon it in what looked like melted honey was a message. If your world has lost its hue, follow me. I know what to do. Address: the end of the back alley behind the wobbly green dustbin, the door that only opens with a tickle. Signed, Horace Hopkins, Chief Thought Tinkerer. Leo, whose Great Grey Glooms were worse than anything else he could imagine, scurried after the golden thought. He found the back alley. He found the wobbly green dustbin, and behind it was a crooked little wooden door. Hesitantly, Leo reached out and tickled the wood with his fingertip. The door let out a loud hee-hee-hee and swung open. Leo's eyes went as wide as dinner plates. He was standing inside an enormous factory, but it was like no factory he had ever seen. Instead of smoke, the chimneys puffed out puffy, rainbow-colored clouds. Giant machines whirred and bubbled with the most peculiar sounds, like whiz-pop and splish-slosh-sprong. The air smelled of cinnamon, rain-soaked earth, and the sound of tiny bells. A tall man, splattered with every color imaginable, strode towards him. He wore a peculiar top hat with a little propeller on it that spun whenever he spoke. His socks, Leo noticed, were mismatched. One was yellow with stripes, the other purple with spots. "Aha! You must be Leo," the man said in a booming, friendly voice. The propeller on his hat whizzed. "Welcome to the Thought-Tinkering Factory. It's where we wage war on the Great Grey Glooms." Mr. Hopkins took Leo's hand and led him on a tour. "Behold," he announced, pointing to a giant machine with spiraling glass tubes. "This is the Giggle Gurgler. We pour in drops of pure laughter, mix them with a dash of curiosity, and voila!" Out of the end of the machine floated dozens of transparent bubble-like thoughts that giggled softly to themselves. One of them popped, showering Leo in a fine pink dust that made the corners of his mouth twitch upwards into a smile. They walked past the minty, mighty courage condenser and the silken dream weaver. Each thought had a color, a scent, and a feeling. The calming blue thoughts smelled of the ocean. The adventurous green thoughts smelled of fresh-cut grass. The exciting orange thoughts were a bit fizzy and made you want to dance. Finally, Mr. Hopkins led Leo to a quieter room. In the middle stood one small, empty machine with a single lever and a few colorful buttons. "This," said Mr. Hopkins with a twinkle in his eye, "is the most important machine in the whole factory, Leo. It's yours. Mine, I don't know how to make thoughts. Of course you do, Mr. Hopkins winked. The very best thoughts are made from the simplest things. He handed Leo an empty glass jar. Into this jar, I want you to put a memory of something that made you feel warm and safe. Leo closed his eyes and thought of his mother's hug after a bad dream. A warm yellow glow filled the jar. Splendid! Now add the feeling of wiggling your bare toes in cool, wet grass. A swirl of fresh green joined the yellow. And for the final ingredient, the sound of your father's laugh when he tells a really silly joke. A handful of crackling silver sparks fizzed into the jar. Leo placed the jar in the machine and pulled the lever. The machine rumbled, it shook, and with a cheerful ping, it produced a brand new thought. It was unlike any of the others. It was a shimmering sphere with yellow, green, and silver swirling inside. It smelled of safety and mischief, and when Leo held it, he felt like he could fly to the moon. It was his thought. "You see," said Mr. Hopkins proudly, "you are a master thought tinkerer. Whenever the great glooms come knocking, all you have to do is close your eyes and switch on your own private factory. Your brain, my boy, is the best thought factory in the entire world." Leo clutched his new thought carefully. He thanked Mr. Hopkins and went back out through the giggling door. When he got to his room, nothing was gray anymore. His special thought zoomed around the room, splashing color onto everything it touched. His toys were vibrant. His books were filled with vivid pictures. And Fuzzkins the cat was now so brilliantly orange, he looked like a piece of the sun itself, purring loudly on the rug. Leo lay on his bed. He wasn't bored, not one little bit. He had discovered a great and marvelous secret. To make his world colorful, all he needed was a magnificent factory, the one that sat right between his ears, and he was the boss.